Whenever we enter data manually into a spreadsheet, there is the possibility for human error. The trouble is that once errors get into our data, it can prove problematic to get reliable information from that data. So we want to try and limit those errors as much as possible. And one way we can do that is using Excel's built-in data validation. Now, our consultant Alex has agreed to help Norton Homewares to improve the work processes around their inventory spreadsheet. For example, you'll see here that they've entered showroom, but with a spelling mistake. Now, this may seem like a minor issue, but a future search or use of a formula with the value showroom will exclude this particular entry. In the location of the inventory items, we can spot two more faulty entries, top and 33. At their facility, there are really only 9 racks where inventory items can be stored. So what would help here is if we restricted data entry to allow only numbers between 1 and 9. Fortunately, Excel's data validation tool is just the feature to help with this. Before we can apply any validation, we must select the cell or cells that we want to work with first. Really important. As our data is stored in a table, which is excellent, I can easily select this column with one click. The data validation tools are located on the Data tab, so click on that. Take a moment to study the dialog. There are 3 tabs: Settings, Input Message, and Error Alert. On our first tab here, we have to define the validation criteria. The default is to allow any value, which means that no validation is taking place. The drop-down menu shows us the list of options we have. Here we select whole number because what we want is a number between 1 and 9. By setting this up, Excel will only permit the entry of numbers 1 to 9 in these cells. By default, the option Ignore Blank is selected, and this means that Excel won't consider a blank cell to be invalid. So next up, we're going to provide some information to those users that will later on enter the data, and we'll do this with the help of an input message on the second tab. The input message is going to be something like, please enter a rack number between 1 and 9. Now I'm going to copy that message and you'll see why in a moment. On the third tab, we are now going to set up the error alert, which is really important because if you don't specify an error message, Excel will pop up a nasty message complaining about a value not meeting data validation requirements. Now this really might frighten your users and they will think that Excel is broken. So we need to let them know what caused the problem. The title for our message will be invalid rack number. And our error message is once again, please enter a rack number between 1 and 9, and we just had to paste that. Excellent. Now if someone types in an invalid number, they will now receive a helpful message. This also ensures that Alex's work will continue to be really beneficial to Norton Homewares after he's left. Now, you can either prevent users from putting in an invalid value altogether, and that's what the stop is. Alternatively, you can give them a warning, which will strongly discourage them but not actually prevent them from entering data. Or you just give them some information to let them know, hey, by the way, that's invalid. In our case, we're going to leave it at the stop. Now immediately, you'll see we're getting that helpful message. So as I come to any of these cells, it will give me that message explaining what I need to do. Okay, so now that we've done that, one really important step as we're setting this up is to test the validation carefully to make sure it meets all the criteria we had in mind. So I'm going to try typing in 9. Yep, fine. I'll type in 10. And immediately I get the message I specified earlier, and now I've got 2 options. I can either cancel my change or I can retry, but it will not accept that. So I'm going to click cancel. One last try, type in 0. Nope, no good. Excellent. I think our data validation is exactly what we wanted it to be. So what we've done now is we've added data validation to this column so that Excel will not actually accept an invalid rack number. You will notice that there are still invalid entries from before we created the data validation rules. And in a later video, we'll have a look at values that do not meet data validation that has been applied. They might have been there before the validation was applied, Or if the data is copy-pasted or imported, it actually doesn't enforce data validation rules. So that's something just to be aware of. It only works for data that's been entered manually. Okay, let's have a look at one more example. Alex wants to make sure that the product codes are valid. Now, here, because they're different, we've got a mix of text and numerics and quite a variety, it's a little bit trickier to add validation. But we know that whatever is entered, the value must not be more or less than 8 characters long. So we can add a little bit of validation. Let's take a quick look at how we do this. Once again, I'm going to select all the cells in question. Open the data validation dialog, and instead of any value, I'm going to choose text length. Now, text length refers to any characters or combination of text and numeric characters. That's really important. So in this particular case, I'm going to say must be equal to 8 characters in length. So now I'm forcing it to not allow anything more or less than that. And then we'll just have a quick error alert, and this time we'll put a warning just so you can see the difference, okay? That's an invalid code, should be 8 characters. So I think that will do it. Now, if I go, and let's just remove that 0 on the end here, you'll see what it does is it gives me some slightly different options. Do you want to continue? The default is no, but it does actually allow us to continue if we want to. So this is how it's different from the stop. We don't, because that entry is actually invalid. So we're just going to say no and escape. So that is how we go about adding basic data validation. In the next video, we will take a closer look at something that I know for a fact is on everyone's wish list, and that's drop-down menus. We'll see you there.